though, the World Economic Forum is taking place in Davos, in the Swiss Alps as well. It brings together political and economic leaders from around the world, of course, to discuss issues facing the global economy. Stephen Carroll is not with me here in set today because he is there in Davos. We can speak to him now. Stephen, start off by telling us what's on the agenda today, can you?
Hello, Stuart. Yes, well, as always in Davos, what's actually on the agenda isn't always the main topic of discussion, and those stories that are in the news that you were talking about there will also be discussed by the more than 40 world leaders attending the 44th World Economic Forum here in Davos. Syria, of course, will be a topic that people will be talking about a lot. We're not that far away from where that conference is taking place in Switzerland, and certainly many of the attendees there will be coming to the World Economic Forum as well. There'll also be a lot of focus this Thursday on Hassan Rouhani, the president of Iran's speech. Of course, they weren't invited to that Syria peace conference in the end, but he will be speaking in a talk entitled Iran and the World, so we'll be sure to hear a little bit more about his views on the Syrian crisis. But the World Economic Forum, of course, does have its own agenda, its own theme, more than 200 events, in fact, covering a whole range of issues from inequality to unemployment to global growth. There is a sort of a sense of a slightly more positive theme to the conference this year after so many years of crisis in the global economy. The overall theme is reshaping the world and looking at the various consequences of that. Now, the people that come to Davos are 40 world leaders, as I've said, hundreds of CEOs, members of non-governmental organisations and a whole host of other organisations represented as well. The majority are men, only 15% this year are women, and of the 2,633 people attending, just 39 of them are under 30, and I'm glad to say that we're joined by one of those this morning. Rajiv Dey is the CEO and founder of Internships.com, an organisation that connects young job seekers with start-ups and small companies. Rajiv Dey, thank you for joining us on France 24. Can we start by talking about the issue of youth unemployment, one of the really big topics here? This is something that you're very concerned about.
Absolutely. Youth unemployment is a global issue, and it's great to have the world leaders and hundreds of the world's leading CEOs here to look at how we can tackle this. I think it's important that we realise that youth unemployment has been remaining at stubbornly high levels in many countries, and so there's some structural issues that really need to be tackled, including looking at how we reshape the education system. So yesterday I was moderating a session looking at the new vision for education, and later today there will be a gathering at the International Business Council of 100 of the world's leading CEOs to tackle precisely this issue.
And talk to me about the work that you do. Internships connects these small companies with job seekers. Are these paid placements we're organising with them, or how does it work?
Absolutely. So our platform connects startups and fast-growing businesses to talent. What I realised was that small companies make up the vast majority of our economy, especially in the UK. There's 4.8 million small businesses, but rarely do young people get the opportunity to connect to these companies whilst they're at university. So Internships.com really acts as a portal to connect these fast-growing businesses looking for talent to these young people. What we're starting to do now is look at how we can work more closely with larger businesses to leverage the resources that they have at their disposal to also support them in their own hiring needs, but also in working more closely with their customer base or their supply chain to work and upskill young people who might want to work either for them in the corporations or within their small businesses that they work with.
And is that the advantage for someone to go? I mean, why would someone do an internship in a startup?
I think the benefits of working in a startup is you really get the exposure to the entrepreneur, the CEO. You get your hands stuck in a whole range of opportunities and functions rather than being necessarily pigeonholed into one particular function. It also helps to develop more of an entrepreneurial mindset. I think one of the things that we really need to encourage is more young people to look at entrepreneurship as a career path in its own right. If we want more jobs and more growth in the economy, we need to really encourage more people to set up businesses. And what is a slightly worrying factor is that about 40% of people actually consider, less than 40% of people have ever considered setting up a business, and very few actually go on to set up a company. And so by working in a startup, you can develop more of an entrepreneurial mindset and hopefully one day set up your own business.
And this week you've issued what you're calling your battle cry for youth unemployment. Tell me about that. How do you think things can be changed?
Absolutely. One of the issues we're also very concerned about is the mismatch of skills. So what we're seeing is that employers, big and small, are very much looking to hire people, but they're saying that they're not finding the people with the right skills they're looking for. What's particularly of concern is in some countries, a third of jobs are left unfilled, according to a recent McKinsey report. And so what we want to do is really look at how do we tackle this on a systemic matter and really bring online learning, offline learning and experiential learning together so that we can better equip young people with the skills that they need for the world of work. Because in the ever-changing economy. There are new skills that employers are looking for every day, and particularly around ICT and technology skills. So the European Commission thinks that by 2015 there'll be 900,000 unfilled ICT-related jobs. So we really need to tackle this issue head-on and work with education professionals as well as employers to fix this problem.
And what about the idea of, unpaid internships are a massive issue for young people? It's very much reducing some career areas to certain groups of people. Is this something that your internships are paid, correct?
We're a marketplace. The majority of our roles on our platform are paid. What we also appreciate, in some cases, roles may be short-term, a few weeks long, on an expenses-only basis. But what we found in our experience is that many of these placements go on to become full-time jobs. And when you think about these as small companies and startups, maybe 2 or 3 people, they're fast-growing. And if a candidate can prove themselves and really add value from the outset, the employer's not going to want to let them go. So we often find that new jobs are created just merely by having that interaction between that young person and the employer, which ordinarily may not have happened.
So are you encouraging the companies you work with to pay these people?
Absolutely. We encourage companies to pay in order to increase the accessibility for these opportunities, and we're doing everything we can to work with larger businesses such as Telefonica on their Wyra initiative, with working with startups across Europe to send out this message that paid internships are the way forward, and at the same time to see what we can do to create a more meaningful work experience for young people.
And do you have the impression, this isn't your first time at Davos, you've been here before, do you have the impression that things get done here? Is it just a talking shop?
I think this is a great place to convene politicians, social entrepreneurs, cultural leaders and business leaders, and to discuss the really important issues facing the world. And lots of work does get done, but I think it's really the place for the whole broad sector of people to really come together and tackle these in really creative ways. So I was fortunate to be here last year talking about a similar issue, and a number of the conversations that I've been having with the CEOs from last year's meeting have been continued this year, and we're starting to look at new projects that we can kick off. So absolutely work does get done here.
OK, Rajiv Dey from internships.com, thank you very much.
Thank you
for joining us here on France 24. Of course, a related issue to this, which is being discussed elsewhere in Davos, is that issue of income inequality. A survey by the World Economic Forum found that was the greatest risk, according to its participants, coming up to the future. Now, Oxfam International released a report yesterday describing that the 85 most wealthy people in the world hold as much wealth as 3.5 billion people, while our business editor Marcus Carlson was speaking to the executive director of Oxfam International about that.
This is unsustainable. Why? Because it leads to a hijacking of democracy and power. And increasingly we see that this concentration of wealth and power really passes on privilege and disadvantage from one generation to the next.
You've accused the global elite of grabbing money, grabbing power. Do you think that leaders, business leaders and politicians here are willing to listen to what you are saying?
Definitely. The fact that it is an unsustainable trend of widening income inequality, and that is accompanied by a locking out of people from democracies, a hijacking of political power, leads to insecurity, leads to social instability, is a message that is increasingly being heard by global leaders, even from the corporate world. Because what we are asking for, they have a capacity to deliver on. We're saying stop tax dodging. We're saying support the closing of tax havens. We are saying that these resources that are being channeled away because of the twisting of the rules could be plowed back and could wipe out poverty from the face of the earth.
Winnie Byanyima of Oxfam International speaking to Marcus Carlson there. Before we go, just a quick look at what's happening on the markets in Asia. There was no change by the Bank of Japan. It's monetary policy decision meeting. So the Nikkei is up in trading this morning. Also shares up in Shanghai in China after news that the fears of a credit crunch there have been allayed. The interbank lending rate has come down in recent days. That's helping the Asian markets. That's all from me in Davos for the moment. We'll have more, of course, throughout the day and through the next 3 days here from the World Economic Forum. But for now, it's back to you, Stuart.